So congratulations to City of Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer, Commissioner Bakari Burns, and Commissioner Patty Sheehan. And congratulations are also in order, kinda, to Tom Keene and Erica Booth, who came out of the primary election for HD 35. The general election will be held on January 16th, 2024. So, Bill, you have some work to do still, sorry. We are so happy to see Bob LeBlanc in our audience today. Someone who has been very influential in engaging with our attorneys as well and making sure that they too stay in the know of all things elections. And I leave this last announcement, something I'm very, very, very excited about. Thanks to the generous donation of Phil and Jennifer Anderson, we have a donation match on the table of $25,000. I don't see Phil and Jennifer here, but I so thank them very, very much. I talk to Jennifer all the time, but that means that we are going to be looking out into this community to match that amount. We want to make sure that we put the League of Women Voters in an amazing place to support our 2024 election, our students, and beyond. We want to make sure that those funds are utilized to get our communities out to the polling places, to engage our students, to make sure that Orange County knows that they have agency and that they are going to show up to the polls, and that we do everything in our power to get them there. So don't be surprised if I give you a call about how we get this match done. Don't be surprised if you see something in your email, but please go onto our website, make a contribution. We want to make sure that we get that full match, and I thank you in advance for your support. If everyone would make sure that they silence their cell phones, put it on silent or turn it off, whatever's preferred for you, but we want to make sure that we're giving respect to our panelists today. Give y'all a moment. And with that, I know we're eating, but if we would all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. We'd love to take some time to acknowledge our platinum and bronze sponsors. Platinum sponsor Climate First Bank, and our bronze sponsors Lynn and David Barrelsman. I saw David, there he is. As well as Voting Voices, Michelle Levy, Lori and Richard Wack, and Charlie Williams. Thank you all so much for your support of this event. Will our sponsors please stand and be recognized? Can we get our sponsors to stand a minute to be recognized? Thank you so much. And as our platinum sponsor, Climate First Bank is honored to sponsor today's Hot Topic Luncheon. As a mission-driven organization, Climate First Bank offers a range of products that empower customers to use finances as a force for good. Recently announced, a Climate First Bank, we choose the rate and you choose the product. Earn 5.34% APY on their special choice money market 15-month flex CD. That's a pretty good APY, everyone. Or a choice checking account. Speak to them today. Climate First Bank has a table right in the corner. He's waving. Speak to them today about their impact banking products. Make sure to head over there. If you are interested in being a sponsor, you can also contact Lee Rainbow Kemp, do a little wave, Lee, on supporting our Hot Topics event or any of our other events. If we would now, I'd love to acknowledge our elected officials and anyone who has declared and is running for office. If you'd please come up to the podium, introduce yourselves and your name, the office that you are running for or currently hold, And we please ask that everyone hold your applause until everyone has finished. Don't be shy.
I know there's more than just me here. But, I'm Todd Weaver. I'm a Winter Park City Commissioner. I have a couple of announcements this morning. And first of all, I want to thank Jennifer Anderson and Mayor Phil for their generous contribution to the League of Women Voters. And while I'm talking about mayors, the City of Winter Park hosts a Veterans Day celebration, and this year it is on Friday this week. And we're also having a special memorial session for our late friend, mentor, and colleague here at the League of Women Voters, Joe Terranova, who passed away recently. And I hope if you can make it, we'd love to see you there. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Vanos, and I am running for Orange County School Board District 6.
Hello, my name is Jason Johnson. I'm a candidate for Winter Park City Commission, Seat 2.
Good morning, buenos días. My name is Ricardo Negron Almodóvar, and I'm running for Orange County Supervisor of Elections.
Good morning. My name is Wes Hodge. I'm also running for Orange County Supervisor of Elections, and I just want to say thank you to all of our Adopt a Precinct volunteers yesterday.
Hi there, I'm Karen Castor-Dental. I'm on the Orange County School Board, and I am also running for Orange County Supervisor of Elections.
Good morning, I'm Marty Sullivan. I serve as a commissioner for the City of Winter Park.
Hi, I'm Scott Randolph. I'm your Orange County tax collector. I'm announcing I'm running for supervisor. No, I'm kidding. I will. As you can tell, though, I will be on your 2024 ballot, along with all the other constitutional officers, your property appraiser, comptroller, clerk of courts, and sheriff, and supervisor elections. So thank you, guys.
Thank you all so much. If you would like to extend the discussion of our panel, and I know it'll be great, so I'm sure you will, we'll be having hot topics overtime immediately following today's program, right across the breezeway at the library on the second floor from 1:15 to 2 p.m. So head over there. You may see all of the panelists there. We'll see. And now, I'd like to introduce our hot topic discussion, and of course, our great moderator. Our hot topic today is artificial intelligence and elections, the good, the bad, and the reality. Some of us remember when we first heard about the interwebs, or the internet, and now we laugh about our naivete. I personally remember dial-up on my father's computer, so there's that. We find ourselves on another precipice of the unknown. For our last 2023 Hot Topics, we'll explore the new frontier of AI, artificial intelligence, and how it may affect elections and democracy as a whole. AI poses a threat to the 2024 election by creating and spreading false and misleading information that can manipulate voters, damage candidates' reputations, and undermine trust in democracy. We don't need any more of that. It also poses a threat to the security and integrity of the electoral process by launching cyberattacks on election infrastructure or interfering with voter education and participation, literally why we're here. To prevent or mitigate these threats, it is important for voters, politicians, platforms, and regulators to be aware of the benefits and risks of AI in elections, and to take appropriate measures to ensure its ethical and responsible use. It is my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Ybeth Bruzual, who will introduce our panelists. And we have the home team panelists. We have 3 UCF alumni and 1 UCF professor, so go Knights. Ybeth Bruzual has been with Spectrum News 13 since June 1996, where she has extensively covered politics. She worked her way from an assignment editor to a Spanish language news reporter anchor to her current position as the face of your morning news. Ybeth is a respected journalist, a 2-time Emmy winner, and a 4-time Emmy nominee. She has countless awards and was honored as one of Orlando's Women of the Year 2019. Ybeth has been in Central Florida since 1981 and is a graduate of UCF. Please join me in a very warm welcome to our moderator, Ybeth.
How fitting, right? The Knights, a golden mic. Black and gold, baby, all the way. Am I right? Black and gold? Come on. UCF. Go Knights. Okay, so look, I might take, by the way, I don't know who's in charge of setting up a gold microphone, but I give that an A+. I don't think I've ever stood in front of a golden mic. We're gonna make this a conversation. I love watching people when they do these formal events, and that's cool. I'm not that girl. I just like sitting at a diner, a table, and just chit-chatting about serious stuff in the most casual way, because I think all of us need to stop, if you haven't done so, and talk about AI. Thank you for that introduction, because we're all kind of like the naivete, right? Thinking, okay, what's that? Let me tell you, before I introduce our incredible panelists, 10 days ago, President Biden did an executive order on AI. I have a copy of it. If anybody wants to read it, you can find it online. It's absolutely incredible because it talks about the guardrails that must be put up, or else we're kind of all just, it's not going to be good. That was 10 days ago. 5 days ago, Elon Musk announces an AI startup. He says, quote, in one of the articles that I read yesterday, AI will eliminate the need for jobs. Ooh. And I also have copy and literature on this startup that Elon Musk has started. And then Meta, thank you to one of our organizers who texted me this morning, now to require political advertisers to announce, to disclose if they use AI. The Elon Musk situation, it's a chatbot that's designed to answer people's questions if you're on X, formerly known as Twitter. Okay, let me look through my chicken scratch. Let's get to our panelists. These are rock stars. Why? Because they have a UCF connection. That's the common denominator. Okay, so I've got him right here, Julie Anderson. It's a lot of stuff, and I thought, am I going to copy edit the editor-in-chief? I said, no, we're going to read every word. I'm honored to be sitting next to you, editor-in-chief of the Orlando Sentinel, yes, take a seat, and the South Florida Sun-Sentinel, two of Florida's largest daily newspapers. I hope that you're being handsomely compensated for those two roles. That's not on my script, but those are my thoughts. Named editor of both papers in 2018, led the Sun-Sentinel to win a Pulitzer Prize, incredible, for public service back in 2019 for its investigation into the Parkland school shooting that took 17 lives. Both newspapers have won dozens of journalism awards for their local news reporting. She joined the Orlando Sentinel a while ago. Can you guess? 10, 20? How about 33 years ago? As a copy editor, she's worked her way up, clawed her way up, because we know it's not easy. The company's early interest in the internet pulled her into a whole new arena, so basically you reinvented yourself. Good for you, girl. And you spent much of your career teaching newsrooms how to publish 24/7 on the internet, and that's so hard work. She grew up in Orlando and is a graduate of the University of Central Florida. Okay, Bill Cowles. Bill Cowles, your eyes are not red. You must use like really good like eye drops. Been integral part of Orange County Supervisor of Elections since I was in high school, 1989. Believe me. No, Bill, it's starting to happen to me. I get to work and the young kids are like, and I'm like, I wasn't even born when you started. I'm like, okay, you can just stop right there. Okay, so since 1989, after serving 13 years on the staff of the Central Florida Council Boy Scout of America, elected to Orange County Supervisor of Elections in 1996, has been reelected every single election since, and as we could tell, there's lots of people here vying for your job, Bill. Remember, we have 67 counties in the state of Florida. Bill supervises the 5th largest county in the state of Florida, Elections Office, so pretty remarkable. Served in the Federal Elections Assistance Commission Board of Advisors, 2007, 2011. Other professional involvements include, there's so many, President, Florida State Association of Supervisors of Elections, past president of the International Association of Clerks, Recorders, Election Officials, and Treasurers. He graduated, can you guess from where? 1970s, whoa, something. Okay, and now, Kevin Aslett, come on up. This is like a game show, but this is nothing to laugh about, what we're about to talk this afternoon. Assistant professor at UCF in the School of Politics, Security and International Affairs, and Cybersecurity and Privacy Research Cluster. To have you in our midst, it's a super wow moment. Also a faculty affiliate at the Center for Social Media and Politics at New York University and fellow at the Political Economy Forum at the University of Washington. Research broadly focuses on digital technology, opposes liberal democracy, specifically online misinformation and policies designed to mitigate these threats. Welcome to our panelists. Okay, you'll each get individual questions, but feel free to contribute, of course, as we chime back and forth. This was not on our emails. I'm going to surprise all of you. Surprise, with a quick lightning round before the big questions. Bill, you know it was coming. If you could have one word to describe AI, maybe 2 words, Julie, what would that be?
Scary.
Bill Cowles, describe AI 1 or 2 words.
Dismiss and mal.
Okay.
Misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation.
And Kevin. That's 3 words, Bill. Yeah, that's 3 words.
That's why I did just the 3 acronyms.
All right.
Mimicking humans.
Yeah, if there's one thing that you pay attention to today, I'm just going to take this mic off. Hang on a second. Here we go. Oh, that feels so much better. If there's one thing that you pay attention to big time today, besides your in-laws, whoever's calling, or the family problems that we all have, this needs to be it. And if you're going to share anything on social media, the water skiing squirrels and everything else that we share what we're having this discussion about today. Okay, first question is for Mr. Bill Cowles. What things is AI's potential for improving or not elections and voting? So in that respect, being that you just literally, hours ago, were dealing with the elections last night, I figured you should go first.
Thank you, Ybeth. And yes, I think everybody figured out I'm not running for re-election. And also, thank you to the wonderful adoptive precinct groups from the League of Women Voters who worked yesterday. On the one hand, the elections community is always constantly trying to make sure we're giving out accurate information and sharing information that voters or future voters need to know. But on the other hand, it has become more and more of our responsibility to debunk the information that is floating. And so from that standpoint, the challenge is for campaigns to give factual information. The other part that is a real concern is how candidates go to consultants and how consultants then take advantage of the negative side of AI in the campaigning side. So from that standpoint, in the elections community, and as you can imagine, when I started as the elected supervisor in 1997, or 87, don't matter which one. We didn't even talk about this. And so we've grown up in this area, and particularly 2016 was the big year in 2016 when we had the interference with the Russians and the attacks on the voter registration database. So from that standpoint, we as a community, elections community, have really worked hard to harden our information and make sure it's accurate information.
And part of it is kind of in the introduction. It's kind of interesting and welcome that President Biden has done this order and is going to do this, because we need federal protection. We need federal regulations to help regulate this industry. This happening. It really has become an industry. So from that standpoint, again, the elections administrators should be the trusted source of information. One of the new things that came out of it is, if you know, our website is changed to .gov, and .gov should be the signal that you are talking to a trusted governmental agency.
Let me ask you a little follow-up on that. Can you just recap very quickly, because I think so much time has happened, maybe not, it feels that way, between the time that this whole Russian interference, because we hear that a lot. So you are our official guy, just like in 1 minute or less, just recap what happened there.
Well, there was information that I need to go back that 2017, President Obama put us under the Homeland Security. So that began to get us briefings about what was going on. And so, again, a lot of rumors, but in Florida, there's only one county, Washington County, was documented as having their voter registration database attacked, but not compromised as far as we know. But that was the turning point for the Orange County Elections Office to say our homegrown voter registration system, we were standing out there on our own, and that's why I and the other two counties who were on our own switched to the statewide vendor who was doing the rest of the state, so that we were all protected from an attack.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's go to question number 2, and that's for Professor Aslett. What legal protections are there against the unauthorized AI alteration of an individual's image and or voice? Because that's what we're starting to see more and more recently.
Right, so we have this right to publicity, which essentially gives us the right that protects us from the unauthorized use of our image, our likeness, or any characterization of our persona. And so it's this is state right, and so not all states have this. Actually, Florida does. And so, but most suits are only successful in the courts when the defendant is actually using this likeness for profit. And so usually, actually, it's not as protective as what we would like. There's also, unfortunately, protections for AI-generated images. The First Amendment protects the use of AI-generated images when there is creative content involved, or enough creative content involved. So, for example, there was a painter who painted Tiger Woods' 1997 Masters Golf Tournament victory, and was later sued because they didn't get the consent of Tiger Woods and his team. But the judge ruled that because there was enough creative content in the image, in the painting, that it actually, to protect the painter's First Amendment right, the suit wasn't successful. And so the First Amendment protects the AI-generated images and content, and we also have this right to publicity. So there's a gray area here in terms of our protections, and it's really a case-by-case basis. But there has been a bill that's been proposed by some US senators, I think one of them, Amy Klobuchar, called the No Fakes Act, which this act penalizes social media platforms for hosting any content with altered images without the participants' consent, without those images' consent. And so this is a proposed legislation that would clarify the rights and protections that we have, because currently there actually aren't a lot of protections against that. And there's also this other issue that I want to quickly note on, which is generative AI, which is AI models that create content that mimics content created by humans. They use copyrighted data to do this, right? So they use copyrighted books, Wikipedia, they use music, copyrighted music. And so by doing that, that is also possibly copyright infringement here. And so there's also questions about whether or not the content produced by these AI models, even if it's not directly infringing or using our images, it had to use our images to create that output. And so there's a question here of whether or not that should be allowed. And that's a question currently up to the courts, and I think there will be some court cases coming up.
If there's a statement that has been uttered thus far, I think this is the one that has me, yeah, kind of like that noise, just a screeching halt. Like, whoa. I mean, that was perfect. Because we're seeing these images already. We're seeing candidates. Well, it is them. So all of you, and I was going to say that to the end as like a call to action, need to be very careful, pretty please, because all of us will be sharing, share, and it starts to spread like wildfire. We have to be careful. Hearing you say that is really just sends a chill down my spine. Okay, so Julie, this is for you. How are news organizations, if you could share with us, responding to the threat and opportunity of AI, especially as it relates to elections?
Yeah, so I'd say newsrooms first started becoming aware of the threat of AI in elections in about 2016. And I think our first responsibility was to report about it, to educate our readers about what it was, to call it out, to explain it. But the other thing we're really worried about was being fooled by deep fakes. And deep fakes are when, an example would be, a presidential candidate or any candidate is saying something that they didn't really say, and their mouth is moving and they're saying words they didn't really say, and it looks real, but it's not. And so we have to make sure that we're not being fooled as reporters and as news organizations. So the first thing is we always have to trace back, what is the source of this? And if we have any doubt whatsoever that it didn't come from, say, a campaign or from the politician, we have to go back and ask and make sure. Some of the larger news organizations, like the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, CBS News just announced, I think a couple days ago, have formed whole teams of, I call them forensic reporters, basically, that really understand how the technology can put this together and can dissect and can tell whether, and try to detect whether it's real or not. And then they report on it. And so I would suggest, if you have any doubt, first of all, don't share. But also go look at reputable news organizations to see if they're reporting that same information. For instance, there was a video that was produced after the first Republican debate that had DeSantis resigning from the presidential campaign. And it was fake, obviously. But some people didn't think it was fake, and they spread it. And it was just a person who knew how to use this, and he thought it was funny and did it as a joke and put it out there, and then it spread. And so, we as news organizations have to make sure that we don't take that seriously. We have to stop, check it out, and then write about it and make sure others understand that that was fake.
You know what's crazy about that is that ask any news organization du jour, anywhere, Spanish, English, overseas, we're already short-staffed, right? During the pandemic, we've all learned how to do more with less, and honestly, that goes across for any kind of field that you're in, whether it's banking or whatever. Everybody's asked to do more with less, and so we do it, we push through. Now there's something else that we have to add on to the list. A couple days ago, I was doing some stuff around the house. I had the TV in the background, and one of the, I'm not going to say the company because I don't want them coming after me, but one of the big cell phone companies, we'll just put it that way, had a commercial. And so there were these young people, I think they were by a mountain, and they're like, you don't like everybody's face in this picture? Don't worry, use the AI tool. Clicked it, and so everybody's face was kind of like not everybody was paying attention, and all of a sudden everybody's like, and I'm thinking, oh my God. So in a court of law or something, like somebody was seen at a bar and then somebody was missing, but they were smiling. Were they smiling? Did somebody change that image? Did somebody running for office change an image? So just please be aware that as journalists, we have now this extra task to deal with. Bill Cowles, let's continue the conversation if we could. This is very specific for voter registration and people's votes. What's being done here in the state of Florida to protect voters' registration, something that could seem misleading on a website, on a social media platform?
That's a good question. And so I'll go back. I mentioned that Obama put us under Department of Homeland Security. but it also, from that standpoint, we became a critical infrastructure in the process. And with that began the flow of federal grant money. And so that has been helpful to us to help harden our networks and our systems. And one of the things that's very common or known about the election process, you know this from your education, is the fact that it's decentralized. And so the election process is decentralized. Each state, each territory has their own elections laws. And in 2008, Governor Charlie Crist moved Florida to a all-paper ballot state. So no matter whether you vote by mail, you vote early, or you vote on election day, you're voting on paper. And the good news is we have a paper ballot that we can recreate any election that we need to at any time. On top of that, we have requirements to do post-election audits that then require us to verify that the actual paper was counted to the software that was programmed for that specific election. So from that standpoint, you have the assurance that anything talked about other states, I love it when I hear other states, they're doing this with their ballots, and I say, we got paper, we can show you. So paper on that. The other part too is all of the things that you might think of, the voter registration database, the election result database, all the databases we have are not networked together. So if something were to happen to one, it's not going through the whole system. And with that, across the country with the federal dollars and with the creation of all these federal organizations like the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Securing Agency, we have education coming down to us. The state has a group of cyber navigators who come in and do penetration on our system to make sure that we have all the protections on it. So all this is being done behind the scene that you don't realize when you're participating in the process.
That's fascinating. The cyber navigators, and they're dispatched by the state of Florida.
They're under the Department of State Division of Elections. There's a team of cyber navigators assigned to counties, and so they do come down and do penetration studies and evaluations of ours, but at the same time, they're feeding down updates of all the activity that's happening out in the cyber world to us that may affect us or may affect a piece of software that we might be using. So we're working with them and getting that constant contact of what's happening.
And something really interesting I want to point out, as a member of the media, and I'm humbled to be in this profession. And it's not being born in this country. You know, you watch that. We go to your office. We have pretty much free reign. Like, this is happening here. This is happening there. That's happening there. I have visited Lake County Supervisor of Elections. Same thing. So we see the machines. We see the ballots. We see the boxes. We see the seals. We see all of this. Let me ask you something that we discussed in the phone call and one of the getting ready for today's event is the fact that you have, when it comes to maybe days before an election on social media, somebody may see something or hear something, a quick soundbite that people can manipulate. They could hear an interview that's from another state about an election in another state. They just hear a tidbit about, no, our polls close at 9, not at 7. And how do you battle that? How do you fight that?
Well, you have to do it on multiple fronts because you may respond on social media, but you're also working with the local networks. You're working with the partners. You know, the best partners we've got are the adoptive precincts because you know the process and you can go out and help educate others about the process on it. So we're constantly looking for whatever way we have to combat something like that. But I think your first part was the most key thing, is the new word, maybe I should have used it with this whole thing, is transparency. And transparency is that now everything we do, you can come in and observe, you know, and many of you have done this in the room. Observe our canvassing board meetings, observe the opening and processing of ballots, even the signature verification process to come in. And so the transparency, and that's something that has totally opened the election process. So anybody can come down and see and verify what we're doing.
Fascinating. Yeah, I'm still amazed when I go to the different supervisor of elections. get out of the studio and get out, pounding the pavement to see how everything works, how the sausage is made, if you will. Okay, this is for the professor. What are social media companies, and we touched a little bit at the beginning of the intro, but I want more specific. Social media companies that we all use and institutions doing to safeguard us from these threats?
Not enough. So, social media, starting with social media companies, recently they have reduced the staff of their trust and safety teams. All social media companies except for actually TikTok. So the trust and safety teams are designed to mitigate abuse and harm to users on their social media platforms. These teams have been reduced in size over the last few years. So they're not taking this problem as seriously as they should. But to give them some credit, they are trying to enact some interventions here. So both Facebook, Meta, as well as TikTok, have tried to develop these labels for AI-generated content. So if there's content on these social media platforms that their models, their AI models, have determined to be probably AI-generated, they'll label it as AI-generated for social media users. Now, I think TikTok is the only social media company to actually put this out into the field, but I know that Meta is working on this on their Facebook platform as well as Instagram. But in addition, I think the biggest thing that needs to happen is there needs to be more transparency. So the government needs to force social media companies, as well as these AI companies, OpenAI, to give us data so that independent auditors and academics can look to see what's going on. Because one problem we have on social media companies is we don't often know how big the problem is. And so on these platforms. And so we can't devise solutions or we can't propose solutions from a policy perspective because we don't have access to the data. We don't know how much AI-generated content is being produced on social media and spread around. We don't know what's going on with these AI models because they're black boxes. And by black box, I mean that we see the output, but we don't see what's going on behind. We don't see the algorithms. We don't have access to the large language models that are creating outputs on ChatGPT, for example. And so there has to be pressure from the government. Now, Biden's new executive order on safe and secure, trustworthy artificial intelligence touches on this, that we need to have access to safety tests, but I would actually like it to go further and give us access to the data that they're using to train these models and give us access to social media companies. I got some access on Facebook a few years back where we were able to get access to most of the news links shared on Facebook. And we found that around 13% of all news links that are shared were from low quality news sources that are known for publishing misinformation. And so that helps us, gives us an idea of this is the scale of the problem. Now let's work to try to solve the problem. And so really access to data, I think, is the biggest thing that needs to happen, so then we can start to devise policy solutions.
I'm looking through it now, and anybody wants it, I can give you one of my extra copies or just forward you the link. And I'm just skimming through it, and this is one of the things that makes me go, ugh. The first page, it's, the Biden administration is asking for voluntary commitments from the 15 leading companies to have, safe, secure, trustworthy development of AI. So voluntary commitment. I feel like that, on paper, okay, they're wanting to do something, but you might need something with a little bit more of a backbone on that. And they just go on to say about protecting privacy, about developing standards, tools, tests, a lot of stuff that you have just mentioned. But again, I can share this with anybody who wants it. Let's talk about, Julie, with you, guardrails. What guardrails should we be exploring now to safeguard our democracy from AI's worst case scenarios?
So you think about what is the worst case scenario. One of the worst case scenarios is that a foreign government uses generative AI to distort what actually happened in the election. So that is probably the worst case scenario. And so what can we do about that? We have to hold our government and our elected officials responsible for taking that seriously. Right now, it's the Wild West. It's just it's the beginning. It's kind of like when the internet first started. It's the Wild West, and there are no guardrails really. But we have to realize that the technology is moving so fast that we have to get serious about it now. We can't wait a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, because, I mean, this is I think the potential for bad outcomes is really, really high. So we have to just take it that seriously. You know, I agree. Voluntary, not good enough. It's got to be regulated. It's got to be regulated. And the professor is right. This is a black box. We didn't know for years how much data the social media companies and Google were collecting on all of us. We didn't know, right? Or you probably didn't. I kind of knew a little bit because we could see it being collected for advertising purposes, but they were not transparent about what they were collecting and how they were using it. And the same thing is true with this. They're collecting information and they're using it, and we don't know how they're doing it. So we have to, you know, I'd say the government has to get serious about that and not have it be voluntary because there's too much at stake.
Let me ask you this. Does some sort of branding or sticker or disclosure, like we've discussed, do you think, I would consider that, right? Some sort of, you know, safety net, but is that enough at this point? Because when this, I'm answering my own question. I'm not part of the panel. Let me ask you, I'm going to say, I say it's not enough. I would say it's not enough because the stuff is made so fast and it spreads so quickly that by the time, just like any video that we all see on social media, it just, oh, how did they get so many likes so fast? So there's the question: is that labeling
It would
enough?
help. It would help. So
Would
I think in Biden's executive order, he talks about having a trademark on any AI-generated content. I think that's good. You know, I think we talked about on the phone call, the organizing phone call, that you know, that perhaps organizations like the League could, you know, insist on a policy that candidates label any piece of content they've used AI for, that they label that, or they commit to not using it at all. So that's something that voters could insist on.
Yeah, like a watermark. What do you think, Bill? Do you think having a watermark on some of this stuff is enough?
I think it's a great start, especially in the election industry. They went to the Elections Assistance Commission, which is a federal agency who should be playing a bigger part in this role, particularly as it relates to elections. But they already do certification with a seal for voting systems that have been tested nationally and all that. I think the other part of it, and it just hit me as you were talking, Julia, that in the training aspect is we've got to train everybody how to look and spot it in the context that you receive. And I told the professor, and last night I'm sitting at the county canvassing board table, and it's a half hour before the polls close, and up popped a picture of what was election results for a certain contest on yesterday's ballot. But because of all the research I've been doing for this and the discussions we had, I was able to scroll down at the bottom, and it said, with 355 precincts reporting out of 5,600 and some precincts, you know, I'm going, we don't even have 355, and I'm not Los Angeles, California with 5,000 precincts. So you got to learn to spot it. You just can't see it, believe it. You got to see it, evaluate what you're looking at before you make your decision, and particularly to make your decision, you're going to pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah, I'll jump onto that. I think, you know, the point about Bill makes about identifying misinformation and true information and discerning between it, it's hard. I've done research that finds that 30% of the time, individuals believe misinformation when we ask them to rate misinformation as true or false. It's difficult out there. We've also found there was a popular digital media literacy intervention that says, if you see something suspect news out there, you should go search online and try to see if there's other news corroborating that claim. So we went out and tested it, and we asked some individuals to go search and some individuals not to search. What we found was actually individuals that were asked to search about misinformation became more likely to believe it. Because, I know, counterintuitive, Because what happens when you misinformation uses unique and distinct terms that true news doesn't use. So if one example we found was that Biden was engineering a famine in America, right? Now, mainstream news isn't reporting this story, but low-quality publishers that publish misinformation are. So when you type in engineered famine to Google, you get more low-quality information corroborating that claim. So you not only have to also be careful about how you're searching for information. You have to look at the source, and I think that might have been touched on earlier, focusing on the source. I had another project where we gave people a browser that showed the source credibility information of all the online sources that they were viewing, the news sources. And it would just read green for credible, red for low quality, publishes misinformation. And we found was that people who had these credibility ratings stopped going to these low-quality news publishers. People want information, the right information. They do. But we have to empower people to get that information, right? And so I think this watermark is, a great idea, and things like it, labeling, empowering people to find the right information. We can't tell them what's right or wrong, but I think giving people the tools to find it, I think is really key. And also being careful about these interventions because they can backfire.
Wow. One of the things too that I ask, if it might be hard for some, but you don't want to always hear from the same people that see as you do. You want to hear from everybody. So like, for example, for myself, on any given day, I watch CNN, Fox News, Bloomberg, Telemundo, Univision, NPR. I watch, or I'm in my car listening to all of them. I want to hear what everybody is saying. So that way you know what is being said that kind of is a red flag, and then you start to look at the same thing when you're online. Look at different news outlets to see what the heck they're talking about. And some of it you go, we all have like that gut feeling, right? We all have a gut feeling for a reason, and you kind of know. Okay, here's another question. This is for all three panelists. I'm going to shake things up a little bit. How can AI be used to impact groups which are important to elections? We're talking young voters, senior citizens, Hispanic, the black vote, persons with disabilities. We can start with you, Bill Cowles, since you're right there in the middle. This could impact huge voting blocks.
Well, again, education, but the fact checking, as we've talked about on it, and the other part that really irritates is, remember I started off by saying the system is decentralized and the power of the speed of information. So the information, so when we're talking about making sure it's credible and reliable, you've got to do that checking, and don't believe it. You bring back a memory of the governor of Tennessee was on a local radio station telling them what the law was here in Florida. No, check with the correct source. Fact check your source, okay? Because that's where that disinformation comes.
But people don't have time. People, like, how does people stop and check the sources? We're clicking around. That's hard.
Well, again, it's building on the process. You make sure that you're dealing with the appropriate authority, which is the local government office, and verifying your information, verifying it came from us, and then using it and sharing it to educate others.
Okay, Julie, same question to you. How can AI be used to impact groups which are important to elections, of course, young voters, senior citizens, black voters, Hispanic voters, persons with disabilities?
Well, I think the danger could be are the dirty tricks that could be played right before the election, where if you could use AI to convince a group that maybe the election, that their polling place changed, like in a neighborhood, their polling place has changed, and then it could look like it's coming from Bill Cowles,
Pick up my voice off of all the interviews.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So those are the kinds of sort of dirty tricks that could be played. I try to think, like, is there a good way that it could help? I haven't thought of that yet.
I have read quite a few articles, and we've done quite a few stories at Spectrum News 13 and of course, this is the infancy of all this AI stuff, but when it comes to some medical advancements in research, we've done a story with a local hospital, and so they will look at, AI will look at what so many tests, scans, MRIs, the human eye will look at, but then this thing goes through a sequence and it looks at it over and over and over and can actually predict whether someone, after having a scan, will eventually get certain types of cancer. And that's when you stop and go, wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, I think in healthcare for sure.
In
Some
healthcare.
Great areas.
And it doesn't eliminate the fact that you need a specialist to look at these scans, but it certainly helps to have the assistance of AI when it comes to that part of our world, when it comes to the medical field. Okay, and how about for you, for the professor, when it comes to how could this positively or negatively, it appears mostly, impact AI, some of our voting blocks?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So I would like to state that, in my research, I've also found that actually younger voters are the most vulnerable to misinformation, are actually most likely to believe misinformation. So I know maybe older voters get a bad rap sometimes for having lower levels of digital literacy, but younger voters...
Yeah, I'm going to pat myself on the back.
Yeah,
I'm 52.
okay.
Yay, 52, okay.
But, and part of the reason is also younger voters go to, where do they go to verify information these days? I teach, they go to TikTok. They go to, yeah, I know, I hear the groans, yeah. That's where they go, right? They go to social media to fact check for their information. So I think teaching, from at high school, middle school levels for our young voters, where's credible information coming from, right? Because we know source is huge. We found in my research, I talked about the source credibility labels, but also I've done other research where when you emphasize the source that information comes from, individuals are able to determine whether something is false or whether they should be more skeptical of information. And so really focusing on the source of that information, and also maybe teaching, in high school, in middle school, having these digital media literacy classes on how do we discern between true and false news, because the reality is that generative AI is going to create an avalanche of information, especially around elections, because the goal is to erode our trust in democracy, to create chaos, to create a society that doesn't agree on basic facts. And that's what generative AI is going to do, right, coming around these elections. And I think it starts from our schooling and our education system.
And I have to say, somebody who, I'm part of the morning crew on Spectrum News 13 Monday through Friday, but I also have the honor of, I can't even say fill the shoes because nobody could fill his shoes, but Scott Harris, our beloved late anchor who covered our politics beat for decades. And the show's called Political Connections. It airs every Sunday. And in that show, when we talk to Republicans, Democrats, NPAs, you name it, this goes for, I'm going to say to somebody who moderates that show every Sunday, I'm looking at both sides here. I'm going to be very crystal clear. Looking at both sides who are looking at the stuff to guide people. Let me jump ahead, if I may, to see what trends, is that my phone? No. What trends you are seeing for, now that we've got 2023 elections, except for the January 16th for HD 35, but for the 2024 elections, what are you seeing? What are you hearing in your inner circles about some of the red flags? Not just with the big race, the presidential race, but with other races. What are you hearing in your circles? Bill?
Fear, trepidation. I've been saying this often now, is, my first presidential election that I conducted was the 2000 presidential election.
Oh my.
But it was over in 45 days. And 9/11 came and united this country. The last presidential, well, maybe not the last, but the last one, 2020, then came the January 6th insurrection. And it's not over. And that's the problem. We're not over, and now we're going to build another layer with the 2024 one. And when I look ahead, and I talk to my colleagues, we have several concerns. obviously, we got a legislative session coming up. Are we going to get election changes right before the election? And what's that going to do? I mean, I went through it yesterday, and the poll workers there. How many of you poll workers heard some voters say, "Why didn't I get a vote by mail ballot? I always vote by mail." Yeah, we've done mailings to everybody. We've had, well, but they still don't get the message. So you got those type, another change in the election law. Then you got Florida's presidential preference primary on March 19th. Oh, wait, there are 2 people who live in Florida going to be on that ballot. And what's that going to do to us? And how's the aftermath of that election going to play for the fall with us? So it's fear all the way through, and even in the elections officials community.
Okay. Yeah, that's something that we're covering at Spectrum News for, from my point of view as a minority, and I go to so many events with the Hispanic community, and you have strong dedication, Hispanics who are Republican, you have Hispanics who are Democrats, and this conversation is being had on both sides. I'll be very honest with you. Both sides is pointing finger at each other when it comes to that voting bloc, the Hispanic voting bloc in Central Florida. Can you believe this, Bill? 48%, or just over 48%, of the students in Orange County are Hispanic. When I moved here in 1981, there was like 6 kids who spoke Spanish. I mean, but it's now the dynamics also change because they come, many of them from Puerto Rico. The voter turnout in Puerto Rico is through the roof. You would dream of having like 80% turnout. Can you imagine?
And that's the challenge to the future supervisors and in the elections community, is communicating with our voters, and particularly the fact that they come sometimes without the knowledge of the process. So you're educating what we would consider civic education, leading into making them an active participant.
Fascinating, and it's one of the things that I'm baffled as somebody who's from Puerto Rico to this day. I don't know, because you don't have that vote. It does not happen when folks move from Puerto Rico to Central Florida. They are involved, yes. They vote, yes. But there's still some misunderstanding as to how the process here works. In Puerto Rico, it's 100 by 35. It's a small island. They have speakerphones. People drive all over the streets. You know who your candidates are. Here, people are like, okay, it's the vast land of what is Central Florida. A lot of folks are not even clear, who the candidates are.
Never heard about voting for precinct committee persons or soil and water conservation board members. And then you start talking about the different levels of government, and they are very confused because it is not what they're accustomed to.
Yep. Okay, it looks like we have to wrap things up a little bit. Good, Q&A time. So Q&A, does anybody have any questions? Over here. Over here, I'm sorry. I'm gonna pretend hi, yeah, come on up to the podium. Over there we have a microphone. Sorry, I thought I was excited about giving you the golden microphone, but I'm holding on to it.
I am a new member, so I'm asking this as a member. Ms. Anderson, I think the big concern when it comes to deepfakes are obviously bad actors using deepfakes to sow chaos. Can you discuss for me the inherent tension as a news organization between the need for authenticating content like that versus the desire to be first, get an exclusive?
Yeah. What I've said in our organization, it's getting it right is paramount. Getting it first on something. It's a lot worse if you get something wrong, something that bad. And so we have to stop it and just check it out. I don't feel that pressure to be first on something like that. We have to check it out. There have been many times where, not related to deep fakes, but just in general, where we've heard something that didn't seem quite right, and we just waited, even though other organizations had gone first. It turns out sometimes they're wrong, and then we were glad that we waited. So I don't feel that pressure to be first, to be honest.
If there's a bad actor out there that's trying to destroy this democracy by submitting bad information, disinformation, is there a criminal statute that they could be prosecuted on to prevent them from doing that and put the fear of God in them for not doing it?
And I think, Rick, we can tell you that that was discussed on our discussion about it, but then it also goes to enforcement and who enforces it, who verifies it, and also it gets into that complicated area of implementation.
I'll just add, there's a real gray area between misinformation and disinformation, right? So misinformation is maybe the unknowing spread of false information, and disinformation is with the purpose of spreading false information. And it can be very difficult to adjudicate intent and to understand intent. So that does make this really difficult. I think there should be, more, but I think it's a very difficult, a gray area. So just to add.
Yeah, I think one area that maybe would be an area of opportunity to do that would be defamation. I mean, if you're a candidate and somebody is using your image and it's defaming, I would sue on that. It hurts my reputation. So that might be an area that you could go after somebody for.
Okay, next question.
Hi, I'm Kathy Schmitz. My question is one of nuance. I think we can all agree on sort of the extremes of misuse, but the question of the artist who painted a picture, right? We have a long history of caricatures, political commentary, cartoons, satire, all of that. So how will we find talk about that gray area, if you would?
Yeah, I think that that's very difficult, and I think that is why there is this creative content is a form of protection, the First Amendment protection for creative content, for content like caricatures, satire, etc. And I think it kind of goes to the difficulty of intent. What is the intent of this piece? Is the intent to sow chaos, to spread misinformation, or is the intent, artistic? And that's difficult. I got a C in art in high school, so I don't know what art is, so I may not be the best person, but I think that it is difficult to intent to, and I think this is why it's been so difficult to solve this problem, because you have protections for this kind of content. And we also have protections for people, and trying to adjudicate between that, and get it at the intent. And I think, Scarlett Johansson recently filed a suit against an AI company for creating a deepfake video of her endorsing the product. But that is clear in terms of they're profiting off of her likeness, her endorsement, and she didn't actually endorse it. So that's a very clear way to go after this content. But there's a lot of this content in the gray area because you're maybe not profiting, or maybe there isn't this intent for defamation, and it is difficult. But there are some examples, some wins out there.
Okay, we have one more question, and then that's it for that Q&A. Yeah, one more.
Darn. Quickly, Professor, you had mentioned that there was good news sources and bad news sources, and you seem to categorize them one and the other. And I'm wondering if you can tell us what the resources that we can use to be able to track the good information from the bad information. And
That's a great question. So the web browser that I tested this out on is called NewsGuard, and so it's a web extension you can install on your web browser. It costs money unless you're using the browser Edge, the Edge browser. But I think you can get through the library. You may be able to get for free, actually. Maybe I'll send information out to the League of Women Voters on that. So it's a great tool for determining what is credible content and non-credible content. What they use journalistic criteria. So do they have a fact-checking team? Are they transparent about who's on the editorial board? Do they retract stories when it comes out that they're false? Right? And so they have this set of criteria that determines, is this news source actually producing credible content? And so I think NewsGuard is a great option, and there are some other sources that maybe I'll send out to the league, and I think that'll be helpful. All right, but thank you. That was a great question because it is difficult. It's difficult.
Okay. And with that, we're closing out the Q&A. Okay, so that's a wrap for the Q&A, and I think that's a wrap. Yes, there she is. On behalf of Spectrum News, thanks for having me, and I'll see you at 5 a.m. Well, I'll get there at 3 a.m. I'll get there at 3 a.m.
Let's give a round of applause for our panel. This was amazing. And Ybeth, who pulled this all together, and I need to tell you all that when she told me she goes to bed at 6 o'clock p.m. because she wakes up to go to work at 3:30 a.m. So thank you, Ybeth. This was amazing. Well, this was a wow, a big wow for all of us. So I want to thank our panelists, our moderator, Ybeth, Julie, Bill, Kevin. This has been a really scary but enlightening conversation. There's a lot of takeaways for us, but we want to thank you for your time and your tireless dedication to free speech and to your care in making sure that what we read and understand are the facts. It's important to our democracy, and the work you do is important to us. So I think there's a couple calls to action that are very clear to me, and I'm sure to all of you. Where is my friend Stephanie Vanos and Karen Castor-Dentel? Raise your hand. So for the school board, I think there's a call to action for curriculum on digital education. And I don't know if that's in the civics and the government class when they're juniors and seniors and they're, getting ready to vote. But that gets my vote, and I think it gets the league's vote. So that's something for us to consider how to advocate with our school board officials on how to make those kinds of changes and start that process. The other thing is the entire call to action about AI ground rules, which all of our panelists talked about in some form with trademarking or mentioning in some way that every candidate and their staff and their consultants, because we know, for those of you who are involved, that candidates use a tremendous number of consultants who may not be employees, but they're all under contract, to label their content that's developed with generative AI. And it's really that they take a pledge. It's voluntary, but that goes back to the president's executive order. How do we put some guardrails in that are more regulatory than voluntary? But they have to pledge that they will do that and not to use AI to misrepresent a competitor and what was said or done, and not to use AI to misrepresent what you have done or said, and not to confuse people, which is the biggest thing, that they agreed to not use AI to confuse people. I think we had the example here that was used that polling places were changed in some community and people were showing up in the wrong place to vote. And by the time they got to the correct place, it was closed. It was, at the end of the day. But we need to be figuring out how to get our candidates to agree to this, and their staff and their consultants. Not going to be easy, but I think that's a call to action for the league. We could do it locally. We can advocate at our state level, and we can certainly advocate with our national organization. So we have work to do. The idea is you come to the hot topics, and we send you home with homework. Along those lines with homework, there are petitions that we have today. One is for clean water, and one is for abortion access. Some are on your table. If you have not signed these petitions, please sign them. If you've signed them, take the blank one with you and share it with your friends. We are getting down to countdown time to getting these petitions to the number that's required to bring them to the ballot. And it's really by the end of December. So this is our chance, folks, to get these things on the ballot. Let's not blow it by not getting all the petitions that we need. What else? Oh, we have more homework. On the table is an evaluation QR code or a web link, and it's on our slide. We really value your feedback. We want to know what you think of the event. We want to know how you got here. You know, what information, what about our marketing program brought you to Hot Topics today? So please take a minute. It'll be about 3 minutes to complete the evaluation, and we would be very grateful if you would do that. I want to thank our Hot Topics committee. Since this is our last Hot Topics of 2023, would our team kindly stand? Come on, don't be bashful. We have a dedicated team of about 10 committee members who pull this event together every single month. This isn't once a year, this is every single month, and without them, we wouldn't all be here today. So I call them my dream team, and they truly are. Also, I want to thank Joel and Alex from the Event Center because they are a dream to work with, and our fabulous caterer who gave us our lunch today, Cuisiniers. So thank you all very, very much. We're going to continue this important conversation across the way on the second floor of the Winter Park Library, starting at 1:15, concluding at 2. So if you would like to participate, Charlie Williams will be moderating, and we hope that you will come. Now, what's coming up next? We're going to take a break in December. Well, some of us will, but some of us are going to keep working on planning. But you get to take a break. And we'll be back again in January in 2024 in a new year, January 10th, when we present Healthy Communities Equal a Healthy Democracy. This is going to be in partnership with the Peace and Justice Institute and the Central Florida Foundation, and I am thrilled that our very own past co-president, Sandy Vidal, is going to be our moderator. So please start the new year by joining us. And if that's not enough, we have a fun event where there's no homework involved, just shopping and drinking wine and having a good time with your friends and getting ready for the holiday. So you can check it more on our website. It might be on the table. That is our Sip and Shop event on Friday, December 8th from noon to 6 p.m. That is going to be a lot of fun. And we have our wonderful holiday party Wednesday, December 13th at the lovely Women's Club of Winter Park. So please go to our website and sign up. And last, where is Gina? Gina Hall is here, and if you are participating in our postcard project, there's packets available, the check-in table, and Gina will help you out, and we appreciate you doing that. And last, but never least, we ask you to join, donate, and volunteer, and bring your friends to the League of Women Voters of Orange County. And with that, if there are no more announcements, we stand adjourned. Thank you.